It always starts the same way. She doesn't see you for who you truly are. She sees you as the version of you that she imagines you could become. You've felt it in her eyes, haven't you? That flicker of hope. Or is it hunger? You think you're being truly seen, but the truth is you're not. You're being measured, assessed, scanned like a blank canvas, waiting to be turned into a masterpiece. But that masterpiece was never you, and it never will be. Carl Jung warned you about this, not with soft-spoken encouragement like some self-help guru. No, he warned with the cold precision of a scalpel, the gaze of a man who spent his entire life staring into the psychological abyss of the human soul. Jung devoted his life to mapping what he called the unconscious, that part of the mind which operates silently beneath your awareness. And in that abyss, he discovered something chilling about women. He realized that they don't just fall in love with men. They fall in love with the idea of men, with fantasy, with projection, with what their own mind casts outward. And the most terrifying part? Most of them don't even realize they're doing it. You think she's choosing you, but in reality, she's choosing a version of you she's created in her own mind, a psychological puppet cast to play a role in her private movie. And when you no longer fit the script, she doesn't rewrite the story. She changes the actor. Jung called this projection the Animus, the inner masculine image that lives inside every woman. And when that animus is immature, undeveloped, or unchecked, it becomes a tyrant, an invisible force that drives women to chase dangerous men and reject good ones. It makes them argue without reason, dominate without wisdom, moralize without responsibility. Jung did not downplay this. He described it as a form of spiritual possession, a state in which the woman is no longer acting from her conscious self, but from the shadowy grip of an inner masculine image she does not consciously control. And you, the man, you fall into that trap simply because no one ever taught you how to recognize it. You confuse being desired with being understood. You mistake being chosen for being truly known. You believe her when she says, "You're different." But the truth is, you're just the latest face she's cast to fill a role she's been rehearsing since she was a girl. And when the fantasy collapses, when the mask slips, you're left standing in the wreckage, confused, betrayed, humiliated, asking yourself, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. You simply stopped being a convincing actor in someone else's play. Carl Jung issued the warning long ago. The only way out of this psychological theater is through a process he called individuation, the lifelong path of becoming whole from the inside out. And this, right here, is the uncomfortable truth. Most men will never begin that journey. You were trained, subtly, systematically, to chase approval, to seek validation, to hand over the authority of your own worth, but to women. And as long as you do, you'll keep playing the same role, and you'll keep getting replaced every time the audience grows tired. The process of individuation is not glamorous. It is brutal. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself you've buried, the weak parts, the insecure parts, the broken parts. It demands that you stop blaming women for not seeing you and start seeing yourself. Because Jung understood something that most men never will. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man when you choose yourself. Your worth is not defined by her affection. It is forged in the moment you stand alone, fully awake, fully responsible, fully alive. The man who has faced his own unconscious is no longer seduced by illusion. He is no longer a puppet in someone else's dream. He becomes the author of his own reality. And Jung observed something else, something that cuts deeper. The greatest tragedy of modern men is not that they are rejected, but that they are willing to reshape themselves into whatever form they believe will be accepted. You call it compromise. You call it partnership. You call it love. But Jung had a different name for it: self-betrayal. He warned that men who ignore their inner psychological development will become slaves to the feminine projection, bending themselves like wet clay into the shapes demanded by women who don't even know what they truly want. And so, you stop being a man. You begin to become a mask, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing, until you completely forget who you were before you put the mask on. And women, they sense it far more clearly than you think. The very things you believed would make her love you, your obedience, your predictability, your constant availability, are exactly the things that kill her attraction. Why? Because, as Jung taught, the feminine instinct is not drawn to comfort. It is drawn to mystery, to risk, to the man she cannot fully define or control. The moment you make yourself fully known, without boundaries, without backbone, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, replaceable, disposable. And this is the paradox that keeps most men trapped for life. You fear being alone more than you fear being fake. You'd rather lose yourself than lose her. You'd rather live as a role than face the terror of standing without applause. But Jung taught, until a man embraces that solitude, he will never be free. He wrote, "Individuation is a path not for the faint-hearted. It demands that you die before you die. You must allow the false versions of yourself to burn so that something real can finally emerge." And let me say something most won't dare to speak out loud. Individuation is lonely, terrifyingly lonely, because on that path, you begin to see things you cannot unsee. You start to recognize the games people play, the masks they wear, the lies they tell themselves just to feel safe. And when you try to speak about what you've seen, they mock you. They call you cold, arrogant, too intense, too serious. They accuse you of being the problem. But you are not the problem. You are the mirror. And people hate the mirror, especially when it reflects back what they don't want to face. Jung understood this deeply. He spent decades studying patients who were terrified to confront their own shadow, the parts of their psyche that had been rejected, repressed, buried deep within the architecture of their soul. And with women, Jung issued a sharper warning. They are often raised in cultures that actively encourage them to avoid this confrontation. They're told, "You're already pure. You are feeling. You are intuition. You are complete as you are." But Jung didn't buy that. He wrote that the greatest danger to women is their unconscious animus, the inner masculine voice that speaks with false certainty, false authority, and false moral superiority. And Jung warned, if a woman does not face and integrate this inner masculine force, she becomes a prisoner of it. She will project that image onto every man she meets and blame them for the very war she refuses to fight within herself. And you stand there thinking you're her savior. You think you'll be the exception. You believe, if I just love her hard enough, prove myself well enough, show her clearly enough, then she'll finally choose me for who I really am. But projection doesn't work that way. Jung taught, projection is a thief. It steals reality and replaces it with illusion. And until both men and women wake up from that illusion, they will keep repeating the same tragedy over and over again, each blaming the other, never realizing they're both dancing with the shadows of their own psyche. And this is the bitter paradox. The woman who once saw you as her hero will one day see you as her enemy. Not because you changed, But because you failed to live up to the fantasy she unconsciously projected onto you. And the painful part is, she has no idea she's doing it. Jung called this the inevitable psychological betrayal. That happens when neither person takes responsibility for their inner world. You didn't lie to her. You didn't betray her. You simply failed to fulfill the invisible role. She secretly wrote for you in her unconscious mind. You were never that man to begin with. And that's why she resents you. Not for your flaws, but because you failed to become the myth she never voiced, but always expected. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And nowhere is this more true than in romantic relationships. Men and women alike walk into them, not as whole individuals, but as walking projections, dragging along unlived fears, unmet needs, and unresolved childhood wounds, handing them to a stranger they barely understand. You call it love. Jung called it possession. And like a man under hypnosis, you keep stepping into the trap, thinking, this time will be different. But it never is. Because you still haven't asked yourself the most terrifying question a man can ever ask. What if this keeps happening because of me? You want to blame women. Call them manipulative, deceptive, shallow. But Jung would look you straight in the eyes and ask, why did you allow yourself to be chosen by that woman in the first place? Because the man who refuses to confront his own inner feminine will always be a slave to the unawakened feminine in others. You are not a victim. You are a volunteer. You chose to play the fool. You chose to become the actor in her private film. Because facing your own emptiness, facing the lack of inner wholeness, facing the void that hasn't been filled within your soul, was still more terrifying than living out a role written by someone else. And this is the point where most of you will stop listening. Because this is where comfort ends and responsibility begins. Jung didn't give you cheap solutions. He didn't teach you 3 steps to become an alpha male. He gave you a lifelong assignment to confront yourself, to sit alone in the silence of your own mind until the illusions begin to crack, until the voice in your head, the one that says you're worthless without her, begins to die. And mark my words, that voice will fight for its life. It will whisper, you need her. You're not whole without her. No man can survive without feminine validation. But Jung's work whispers something far more dangerous. The man who can stand without her, without approval, without applause, without needing to be needed, is the man who is finally free. Free from projection, free from performance, free from the tyranny of living as someone else's idea of a man. And when you reach that place, you don't become cold or distant. You become real. You become rooted, grounded, fully alive in your own skin. And paradoxically, that's when women begin to feel most drawn to you. Not because you need them, but precisely because you don't. And your smile, it isn't callous or careless. It's the quiet smile of a man who finally understands. You understand that she too is on her own journey, that she too must confront her own animus, that she too must wake from her own illusions. And you cannot do that work for her. You cannot save her from herself. You can only do what Jung did. Walk your own path so fearlessly that you become a living mirror, reflecting the truth to anyone brave enough to look. Most will turn away, but a rare few, a very rare few, will thank you for it. And that, my brother, is the difference between being loved for the role you play and being respected for the man you've become. And when that moment comes, when you finally realize you don't have to perform anymore, you'll begin to notice something strange. People around you start to feel uncomfortable. They sense something, even if they can't name it. The weight of your presence unsettles them. Because you no longer fit into the predictable categories they've used to feel safe in the world. Jung warned us long ago, the individuated man is not welcomed by society. He is feared. He is misunderstood. He is labeled as distant, arrogant, detached. But the truth is far more threatening. He has become untouchable, unclassifiable, unmanipulable, because he sees through the game. And here's the irony. The very people who once begged for your attention, your validation, your approval, will begin to resent you because you no longer need theirs. Women, especially those still possessed by the fantasy of the perfect man, will accuse you of being emotionally unavailable. They'll say you're too logical, too analytical, too distant. But what they really mean is this: they can no longer control you. You've stepped off the stage. You've stopped reading from the script they gave you. And without that script, they don't know what to do with you anymore. Because you're no longer a character. You've become a man. Jung once joked, the gods have become diseases. What ancient cultures called divine possession, modern psychology calls neurosis. And remember this, men who chase external validation are the most spiritually sick of all. You think you're being romantic when you say, I'd do anything for her. She's my everything. But Jung would simply shake his head and tell you, what you're calling love is actually a refusal to carry your own soul. You find it easier to project that soul onto a woman, to make her the carrier of your hope, your meaning, your purpose. Because if she carries it, you don't have to. But here's the brutal twist. When she realizes she was never built to carry the soul of a man, she will drop it. And she must drop it. Because no woman, no matter how loving, can bear the weight of a man who refuses to carry himself. And when she drops it, you'll feel betrayed. But you shouldn't. You should thank her. Because in that moment when the illusion collapses, you finally stand face to face with the truth. Becoming a man was never her job. It was always yours. And in that raw, unfiltered moment of clarity, you're left with two choices. You can blame her. You can grow bitter. You can join the angry mob of men who do nothing but mock women, resent them, abandon them, like cowards who never had the courage to face their own emptiness. Or you can do what Carl Jung always demanded of a real man. Turn inward. Begin the lonely, terrifying, liberating journey. The journey of individuation. The journey of becoming a whole man without needing anyone else to complete you. Because here's the truth. The woman you're searching for out there is nothing but a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned within. And until you face that part, every relationship you enter will be a performance. Every connection will be a transaction. Every love will be a lie. But when you face it, when you integrate your own inner feminine, you become the kind of man who no longer needs to chase women. You don't pursue them. You don't manipulate them. You don't perform for them. You stand still, rooted in who you are. And from that place, something strange happens. You stop attracting women who want a character. You start attracting women who want truth. And you'll know when it happens, because she won't ask you to perform. She won't try to rewrite your script. She won't fall for a fantasy of you. She will stand before you, bare, honest, real, not as a goddess begging to be worshipped, but as a human being, ready to walk her own path beside you. No masks, no projections, no games. And when you meet her, the real her, not the illusion, you'll know instantly. She won't flood you with grand declarations. She won't treat you like the missing piece of her soul. She won't seduce you with language of completion. Because she's not looking to be completed. She's not looking to be saved. She's done the work. She's faced her shadow. She's confronted her animus. She's burned through her illusions. That's why she won't need you to perform. She won't need you to carry her soul. She'll stand whole in herself, looking you in the eye. Not as a man she wants to mold, but as a man she's finally ready to meet. And in that meeting, there is no desperation, no clinging, no performance. There is only truth. And that kind of love, Jung taught, is the rarest and most dangerous kind. The kind that demands nothing but offers everything. Because it is not born of need, it is born of freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to walk away. Freedom to stand together. Without illusion, without masks, without fear. But let me warn you, most of you will never experience this. Because most of you will quit before you arrive. You'll settle for the performance. You'll settle for the fantasy. You'll settle for the fleeting thrill of being admired. For someone you're not. Because facing who you truly are still feels unbearable. But if you have the courage, the brutal, soul-wrenching courage, to keep walking, to keep standing alone, to keep stripping away every false layer you've built to earn approval, you will eventually find yourself standing at the edge of something terrifyingly beautiful. You will find yourself. And when you do, women will no longer be the source of your identity. They will no longer be the mirror you depend on to feel like a man. They will become something else entirely. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. And you will love them. Not because you need them, but because you choose to. From a place of strength. From a place of wholeness. From a place that knows without apology who you are. Carl Jung didn't leave you a step-by-step guide. He left you a warning that any man who refuses to confront himself will become a slave to the projections of others, especially the projections of women. But he also left you a challenge to walk the path of individuation, to stop blaming women for the roles you volunteer to play, to stop seeking wholeness in someone else's eyes, to stop waiting to be chosen. Because the man who chooses himself fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, is the man who cannot be controlled by fantasy. He cannot be seduced by performance. He cannot be reduced to a character in someone else's script. He becomes the author of his own life. And if you've made it this far, if this message struck something deep inside you, don't scroll away. Don't let this become just another thing you consume and forget. Take a moment right now to share this with another man who needs to hear the truth. Subscribe. Support this message. Because your support isn't just for us. It's for the next man. The one still stuck in illusion, waiting to be set free. Help us spread the word. Help us wake the world, one man at a time. The tragedy of the modern man is not that he lacks pleasure. It is that he has been reprogrammed to crave it. A man today has access to every luxury his ancestors never imagined: instant food, infinite content, constant comfort. But deep down, he feels more hollow than ever before. Why? Because he no longer chooses. He reacts. He no longer builds. He scrolls. He no longer leads. He performs. And worst of all, he confuses being needed with being respected, being desired with being seen. Carl Jung warned of this long before smartphones existed. He mapped the unconscious not to impress the academic elite, but to arm the brave few who would dare to wake up. Jung saw what few dared name, that men and women alike walk through life asleep, projecting ancient wounds onto each other, mistaking fantasy for intimacy and attachment for love. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's exactly what's happening now. Most men believe the relationships they enter, the roles they play, the approval they chase, is their choice. But look closer. Ask the hard question. Who taught you to be this way? Who told you that loyalty would earn love? That availability would earn admiration? That softness would keep you safe? The world did. The system did. The algorithm did. And now your unconscious walks ahead of you, dragging your identity behind it like a limp corpse. You've become predictable, replaceable, contained. You see, women don't fall in love with compliance. They fall in love with gravity, with presence, with a man who stands still in himself, even when the storm of her emotions crashes over him. Jung called this the journey of individuation. The process of becoming who you were meant to be, not who the world trained you to be. But that journey requires death. The death of the mask, the death of the role, the death of the nice guy you've been pretending to be so you wouldn't be left. And this is where most men fail. They'd rather be accepted than sovereign. They'd rather be adored than respected. They'd rather be temporarily chosen than permanently alone. But let me tell you the truth, man to man. You were not made for safety. You were made to lead. This is why Marcus Aurelius sat alone in a tent during plague and war, writing meditations. Why Viktor Frankl, in a Nazi death camp, refused to let his soul be stolen by circumstance. Why Jordan Peterson says, pick up the heaviest thing you can and carry it. And why Jocko Willink reminds us, discipline equals freedom. These men were not preaching. They were issuing a warning. The same warning Jung gave. If you do not face your shadow, it will rule your life and destroy your relationships. And your shadow is not evil. It is your untamed potential, your unowned power, your repressed anger, your desire to be king without asking permission. If you ignore it, it will own you. If you integrate it, it will make you whole. What is the cost? Everything you think you are. And what is the reward? Becoming a man no one can seduce, reduce, or control. A man who no longer bends for approval, but builds because he must. A man who no longer begs to be loved, but becomes so rooted in purpose that love, if it arrives, is only a companion, not a requirement. That man will not be popular. He will be misunderstood, labeled cold, distant, hard. And that's fine, because he does not live to be understood. He lives to be real. He will carry himself like a monolith, not because he is numb, but because he has integrated the chaos within. His peace is not the absence of pressure, it is mastery over it. And when he walks, others feel it. That's the man you were born to be, not a pleaser, not a puppet, not a pawn, but a pillar. The kind of man whose silence is heavier than most men's speeches, whose yes means something, whose no is final. So here is your challenge, brother. Kill the performance, burn the script, step off the stage, let the illusion collapse. Then stand naked, flawed, responsible. Build discipline not for abs, but for backbone. Build purpose not to be admired, but to be anchored. Build solitude not to isolate, but to remember your original voice. Only then will you stop being seduced by projections or your own. Only then will you stop playing someone else's fantasy. Only then will you earn your freedom, not given, not inherited, but earned. So if you feel the tremble in your soul right now, the one that whispers, "This is me," don't scroll away. You don't need another quote. You need to rise. And the time for that isn't someday. It's now. A man without a mission is not a man, he's a noise. And no woman, no job, no goddamn system will ever respect a noise. So get quiet, get clear, and move like a man who's finally remembered his name.